What's good, family? Smash the like button and subscribe. So, I promised you, man, I've been critical of AJ's trainer, and I promised you, man, that I'd go back and look at and analyse some of AJ's past fights and show you, man, what is now currently missing in AJ's performances. I did a video analysing this same fight. This is part 2 of the analysis of this fight. If you want to check that video out, it's called When Anthony Joshua Fought Like a Prince of War. That's the first video. This obviously is the second video. AJ versus Takam. I'm going to go through all of his fights to illustrate night and day differences. Anyway, getting straight to it then. Part 1. We pick up in round 3. AJ stalking. You got what's key here to remember. Takam is a pressure fighter himself. He's a much more aggressive fighter than Pulev, for example. Takam's banging with everyone. Look at even the Chisora fight, it was a war. So the point is here, what's important to remember, AJ's in there with Pulev, big long stiff European don. That should have been food to AJ. This AJ here would have been all over him like a bad rash. It wouldn't have gone 2 rounds in devastating fashion. Pulev would have had his genes altered. Outside of that, let's get to the technical element. So you see AJ here. He's got the aggressive pressure fighter. Where do you see the aggressive pressure fighter? He's getting his back blown out against the ropes. He ain't got a minute to breathe under pressure. AJ holding the centre of the ring. He's not doing no goofy stuff with his arms, the up and down juddering business. He's not dancing all around the ring. His feet, legs are strong. And he's feinting. He's jabbing. His opponent ain't got a lick of breath, ain't got a lick of room. Constantly under pressure. So that's the first part we see. I'm watching it now. Feint, right hand. Now the right hand doesn't land, but what you'll notice is AJ's positioning his opponent into pressure positions, meaning the man's got nowhere to go. That's when you fire off big shots. What you'll notice in the Pulev fight, and we're going to analyse that in its own right, but just quickly to contrast, what you notice in the Pulev fight, AJ's throwing massive shots in the centre of the ring, and they're missing by miles, and it's all messy. Compare it to this fight, it's pretty. This here is boxing 101. Back your opponent, back to the ropes, then you let massive shots off. You don't go wild in the centre of the ring. As we saw in the Pulev fight, Pulev was able to back up in the centre of the ring, which meant that AJ ended up missing by miles on quite a few of his shots. Anyway, moving on. The next part. AJ backs him into the corner, and this transition is high-level boxing. AJ's in the pocket now, and you see he's got his tight right hands on his jawline, and then he kind of half initiates a clinch, but then in transition of the clinch he doesn't fully complete it. If you watch the Pulev fight, you'll see AJ initiate and complete several clinches. When I say complete, I mean he brings the fighting action to a stop and the ref has to say fight on and split them and fight on. But what, again, this right here is high level clinch work because he doesn't fully engage. It's almost like a psychological element to this part. He caresses Takam's waist and almost lulls him into a false sense of security. You can watch it, you see it on your screen. He caresses Takam's waist. Takam, any fighter at that point thinks, almost gives you a second to relax. Okay, we're in a clinch, the referee's going to split it up, there's no danger. But what AJ does, after caressing the waist, he then transitions back into fighting in the pocket. So it's almost, there's high level things going on here. Now AJ himself may not even realise he's doing that, but clearly at this point in his life, 2017, was it 2017? Yeah, 2017, was it? I'm not sure, whenever it was, pretty sure it was 2017, in the gym, his trainer at the time, or one of his trainers was Tony Sims. We've seen Conor Benn fight a similar way. Clearly in his training camps, he was experienced at fighting this way. You don't start doing these things where you're able to transition in and out of clinches, or sorry, you're able to half transition into clinches, half transition out, and then carry on working. That's high level stuff. What's the Pulev fight? AJ himself initiates, almost desperately, initiates full clinches where he clings onto Pulev for dear life. What are you clinging onto him for? Compare it to the confidence of this performance. He's in there with a much more dangerous man, Takam. Takam could knock anyone out with one big shot. Big, small, stocky Don. I'm not saying he's the quickest, but the point is, any one of them shots can knock this spark out. Pulev ain't knocking no one out, nowhere. I don't care what no one says. Oh, he's got a right hand. He ain't got no right hand. Show me when Pulev's ever knocked someone out half decent. Overrated. Pulev couldn't hurt AJ in a month of Sundays. I told you, man. If I was in AJ's camp, I'd have told him, go in that first round, we want to taste what he's got. Pulev ain't got nothing. He's 40 million year old and he's no good. Go in there with your hands down and just see what he's got for you. Pulev would have been shook. What's going on here? This man's got no respect for me. He's just walked in the ring and slovenly got on top of me. All this other stuff, dancing around, giving Pulev way too much respect. And you saw Pulev in there. What do you think he was smiling for? Do you think if he was in there with this AJ, Pulev would have been smiling? Even though he got murked, but it's just all, I'm talking psychologically and other things here. Yes, Pulev got murked, but he wouldn't have been smiling. You didn't see Vlad smiling. Vlad weren't smiling a bit, and that wasn't even a great AJ, in my opinion. That was one of the worst AJs. Overweight, inexperienced. Anyway, you see the transition here. AJ then half transitions out, and he ends up loading up with a right hand. But the point is, half clinch, back into the squabble on the inside, caressed Takam's waist, carries on working on the inside, and then ends up loading it with right hand. But that's a base to work off. Obviously next time, the next progression of that would have been, next time we're not going to worry about putting a big shot together, let's just put a few small ones in. Yeah, caress his waist, work out, dig your shoulder in, and just put two quick ones together. Don't worry about overloading. One of AJ's big flaws is overloading. I know, and obviously it's easy for me to say, but that's what training's for. Are we a top level athlete or not? If you want to be the best you can be, you've got to learn to, let's just hit something. Let's worry about trying to be accurate and speedy. Loading up gets you off balance and people see it coming, as you saw here. Takam was able to step away or whatever. If you think about putting two quick ones together, at least then you're touching something. You waste a lot of energy by loading up loads and missing. But this was 2017, this was 4 years ago. This was an amazing base. Top high level skills, no doubt. Anyway, next part. And actually, even in that exchange, at the very end, still within range, what's key here to notice as well compared to the Pulev fight, AJ was constantly disengaging and dancing out of range. If AJ was in there, yeah, with Mike Tyson, 1986, I'd get it. But for me, Takam and Pulev are one of the same. If AJ could treat Takam like this, actually, truthfully, Takam's much more dangerous than Pulev. 100%. Much more dangerous. I've never seen Pulev even throw a hook. Show me when you've seen Pulev throw a right hook. Show me when you've seen Pulev throw uppercuts. He don't throw them. Same as almost Vlad. Never seen him throw them. And that's why when you get on top of them, they fall apart. But we didn't get to see that really. Well, we did. In round 2, AJ half got on him and he fell apart. But for some reason, there wasn't no follow-up. AJ's almost turning into the Pulev. Turning into the, what's it called? The Vlad. All jabs and right hands. Which is cool. He'll still be the best of this era. But when you want to be the best ever, I said before, I believe AJ has the ability to be the best ever, full stop. This way of doing things, in my opinion, isn't that. He's still got loads of room to go. And looking at his old work, you can see it. So anyway, as I was about to say, at the end of this exchange that I've just talked about in the last segment, AJ exits that whole half clinch business and then stays in rage, doesn't disengage, and you see Takam throw a jab and AJ slips it. That is high level defense. This dancing in and out of range is low level. That's the first thing you learn in boxing. You're under pressure, disengage. You can't score points doing that. The reason Floyd Mayweather is a great point scorer, he makes people miss and he makes people pay. You see here, AJ's making Takam miss and was just about to go into countering. in this occasion it didn't work out. But it's there. Do you understand? That's what I believe fighters should do. Alright? AJ lost to Ruiz, fine. What are we going to do? Are we going to completely start all over again? No. If you don't want to get hit, don't get hit. As in, learn to move your head. Learn to move. Learn to tighten up your defense. And I wouldn't mind if AJ's defense, i.e. his guard, I've done videos on it myself. If AJ's guard was tight, AJ has a very leaky guard. So he's got huge room for improvement. There's no reason he needed to be dancing away from a Ruiz, in my opinion. Ruiz isn't all that. He's alright. And yes, Ruiz has quicker hands than Takam does, but he ain't got heavier hands than Takam does, in my opinion. Ruiz is a pity-patty, quick ones. And Takam's clearly more of an athlete than Ruiz is. So, if AJ's in there digging away on Takam, working him, Ruiz would have got the same thing on a fair night of work. Anyway, next part. And actually, just before I go, as I was doing the editing, I just saw a snapshot which will be on your screen now. And you see AJ's elbow. This is really important because you man who watched the Okoli fight versus Glowowski, you'll remember, or if you haven't, you should watch it again. At one point in the fight, Okoli's struggling kind of to get through. Shane McGuigan says something very important. He says, when you're on the inside, get your elbow and use it to separate his guard. And I believe Shane McGuigan's instruction to Okoli is what you see AJ doing here. I can't think of anything. I can't think of anything else that Shane McGuigan was trying to, or would be trying to get at. And Shane McGuigan, Josh Taylor's extremely good at doing this himself. Digging your elbow in, separating the guard, digging your shoulder in. And this exchange, I've just explained in the last clip, of AJ transitioning or half transitioning through a clinch and then re-engaging. High level stuff, exactly what top level fighters do. Josh Taylor again, high level, does this kind of thing. On the inside, D-transitions from the clinch into fighting, back to the clinch. You know, all this different mixing up on the inside, top level stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up, that the elbow and the shoulder is almost like a third arm. Or it's another skill in itself. Very underused in boxing today. I can't think of a boxer who does it. Really? Yeah, Josh Taylor. Canelo, a little bit. I think I've seen him do it. But outside of maybe 10 fighters, it's not used these days. These inside fighting skills are being lost to the ages. Seriously, it's all fun and games, but I'm genuine. Who's doing it? Who's on the inside with this level of confidence and skill? The art, and this for me is what boxing is. The art of boxing, being able to be in range and still be safe and effective. That's what boxing is. Boxing, this whole Vladimir Klitschko is killing it, in my opinion. Boxers are too lazy these days. They want the easy route out. Oh, let's just win. Let's just win and take no risk. And that's not the beauty of it, in my opinion. I know I'm not in there doing it, but people say they want to be the best. Well, if you want to be the best, or do you want to just do enough to win? That's what boxers need to decide what they want to do. And I actually believe that in this day and age, because it's so underused, people who do use it, it's like a knife through butter. Fighters fall apart. When this level of offense meets the boxers of today, they fall apart. They fall apart. It's not like the 80s and 90s, where you had people like, well, I always use it because I'm not a historian, but Burt Cooper versus Holyfield. That there was a gunslinging match. But Burt Cooper was a pretty average don. You put him in the heavyweight division today, he'd go through them all. Wilder would get murked. Wilder would get murked. Dillian White probably get murked. These things that were the things that were standard in the 90s, that grittiness, but it wasn't just grit. That makes it sound cheap. But that level of people were just like everyday dons were just bangers. And not reckless bangers either. There was a science to it, obviously. Skillful bangers. That art's lost. I can't think of one heavyweight at this point in time who's executing like they used to do. like every man used to do back in the 90s, more or less. Or much lower level fighters were able to do it. Today, I think because of the Klitschko's, that's probably the main influence. It's just gone the other way. And now, like people like Pulev, for example. Pulev's a top 5 guy. He wouldn't have made it. You know what I'm saying? He wouldn't have gone nowhere. He wouldn't have gone nowhere in the 80s or 90s. He wouldn't have had a chance. They'd have chewed him up. Because they fall apart. Even Klitschko himself, to be fair. Vladimir Klitschko. He was tall and long. Back in them, and they weren't even the real guys. Back in them early 2000s, he was food. Do you know what I'm saying? He fell apart. Anyone who stuck it on Klitschko, he fell apart. And that's what... Things change now. These fighters can't fight the way they used to fight. The art of it's lost. I'm pretty sure the trainers are amateur trainers that don't know what they're doing themselves. And I'm not sure what to say, but Conor Benn, who trained under Tony Sims, who was formerly AJ's trainer, it's clear the common denominator there between Conor Benn and AJ here is Tony Sims. Tony Sims left, Rob McCracken's a trainer now, and AJ ain't doing none of this stuff no more. Instead, he's in there with Pulev, who's complete food, and AJ, you watch it. I'm going to expose it myself, but AJ's in there with Pulev, big, stiff, good-for-nothing Don, and he's the one engaging the clinch and clinging on for dear life. I can't believe what I'm seeing. AJ's in there with Takam 4 years ago, where he's less skilled, or should be less skilled, and he's working him like a heavy bag. This right here is what you do on a heavy bag. Most people do this on a heavy bag. Dig your shoulder in, dig your elbow in. AJ's doing it with another man, a top level man, playing with him for fun, like as a you know what I mean? And that's Takam, much more dangerous. Next thing you know, 4 years later in there with Pulev and clinging on for dear life. Can't believe what I was seeing. If this AJ was in there with Pulev, it would have gone about 2-3 rounds. Pulev would have fell apart. Seriously, he wouldn't know what hit him. There'd have been no smiling, no goofiness. It'd have been murked. That'd have been that. He'd have gone in there. AJ would have dug his shoulder in. That would have been it. The elbow would have gone in, and Pulev would have fell apart. The next shot after AJ put the elbow in, that's it. Pulev's done, finished, all over. He wouldn't want no more, because his adrenaline would have been rushing. Pulev's would have been. He probably would have genuinely. If you smelt Pulev's jockstrap after this kind of AJ performance, it'd stink of urine, because he would have literally, he'd have choked and thought, what's going on? Because these big stiff European dons, they don't know, they're not used to. Show me a time you've seen someone stick it on Pulev. It just doesn't happen, and it hasn't happened for years. For years, fighters have just been able to get away with being 6'5", stiff, good for nothing, and that's the end of that. Got away with it because no one's really been able to get stuck in on them. But when people do, they fall apart. And everyone says, "Oh, YB, you don't know what you're talking about." Even look at AJ himself. Any time he put it on Pulev fell apart. But there wasn't that. Watch the Takam fight. The Takam fight. AJ purely consistent, working. That's what you call working. That's what's missing in the Pulev fight. There's no work. It's all hit and miss. There's no pressure. There's no consistency. The Takam fight, the Parker fight, is pure. It's pure Triple G-ness, but with Triple G isn't really a massive combination puncher. He's not a massive. He's more of a one-shot don. AJ had the Triple G pressure combined with devastating combinations, combined with an eagerness to just eat people up. That's not there. I don't know what's happened. I'm just calling a spade a spade. I'd love to be wrong. If it was there, I'd rather not having to do this video. I'd rather be able to tell you, man, he's gone from strength to strength. But you watch it. You watch. I've done the notes. AJ's the one initiating the clinch in there with Pulev. What the? There should be no. I can't think of a universe where AJ should be initiating clinches. When you initiate a clinch with someone and you cling on for dear life, that means you think they're superior to you on the inside. That means you're kind of, it doesn't make no sense. Doesn't make no sense whatsoever. AJ should have been doing these kind of things on Pulev. Caress his hips, lull him into a false sense of security, and then open him up. He wouldn't know what hit him. Anyway, that's my thoughts. I'll be back on the next one.